Live. Everywhere. On netrootsradio.com. David Waldman. Kagro. In the morning. Now, here's David Waldman.
Hey, good morning, everybody. How you doing? It is Thursday, August 6th, 2026. Time to get rolling once again. Time marches on. There's nothing I can do about that. I keep trying. Doesn't seem to be working. But the good news is that most of the mechanics of today's show are working. We've had a couple of slip-ups. It's been a wild week. I believe two things went wrong this week. So there you go. I'm mounting making the case against this week so far. Was it yesterday or the day before when... Must have been Tuesday. I don't know. Tuesday we had the weird problem with the echoing and had to reboot. And then Wednesday, somehow I missed the button on my last alarm. And hey, nobody told me it was time to end the show. We went a little bit longer. And what can I tell you? Well, there's so much to tell you. I should have made better use of the time, I think. Greg Dworkin has a whole raft of stories lined up, as usual, and a couple of personal anecdotes as well. It's now Thursday. Tuesday, as you know, the primary day. Primary day this time around in Michigan. By Wednesday, we could tell you more or less what happened in most of those primaries. Thursday is the day when all the people who wanted to tell you what happened on Tuesday on Wednesday morning finally get around to giving you digested thoughts about what actually happened. And we can draw something from it besides, or we can borrow from their insights, on top of having thrown our own out there off the top of our heads just yesterday. But lots happening all over the place. Lots of strands to connect things to a million other stories, and then a lot of stupid trivia that Trump is up to, some of which is important, some of which is not, and I don't know, we'll liberally sprinkle the show with an assortment of those things. And now it's time for our fanfare, of course.
That's bullshit.
No, it's not. It's time to bring Greg in, and I've already forgotten where. How come I can't? There we are. Oh, no, wait. I use our short one. I thought this was on my front page by now, but it's not. And there it is. I think the one that's still stuck on my front page is the long one that you don't like. Good morning, Greg.
Good morning. Well, we don't have all year.
Right. Yeah. Can't wait around all this time. Okay, let me see.
We only have 90 days.
Did I? Somehow? All right. Well, I'm going to move those around so that they're easier to find.
Do not try this at home, folks. We are non-professionals.
That's right. And, in fact, I don't even want to be here trying it. So, okay. Where are we? All right, there we go. Then move the fanfares to over there. Those are the ones that get us in copyright trouble. Go over there. Okay. Got it.
So.
Yes. Good morning, Greg.
I'm going to tell you a story.
All
and
right.
It's about video games and AI. I just thought it was really interesting. Remember, this is an anti-data center election, except in Virginia where they've been around so long, people sort of got used to them. Still hate them, though.
Oh, yeah.
Bring them up as an issue, you'll win.
You can't see around them, I can tell you that much.
Yeah, and they make noise. So what good is AI? Maybe all of this storm and drang
that's true.
is really about just change, and I hate change, and shakes fist at clouds and stuff like that. Well, AI is a lot less than it's purported to be, as people who are making incredible investments in it are finding. So it's sucking up your water and electricity, but not necessarily giving you all the gains you thought you were going to get out of it, and that's where the story comes in. Okay. So there's a new game out. It's called Relic the First Guardian. It's a lot of fun. I'm playing it. There's like tons of bosses. In the first area, you fight 27 of them. In the second area, you fight 45 of them. I mean, it's not just like, okay, let's kill all these little enemies and then get to the giant boss. No, there's bosses
like my
everywhere.
Office job.
Some tough, some easy. Some are hidden. Some you can't find.
Yeah.
Some you need a particular item, like a sealing stone, Sealing. Sealing stone of judgment in order to get to the guy who purports to be the judge of law that you have to be. So it's fun. And the combat system is fun. However, the game has a lot of flaws in it.
All right.
Like
that
you
also
can't
sounds
always
like my
heal.
office.
You can't always use your magic spell. Sometimes you're fighting a boss, you get stuck in one spot for no reason. The developers know this. They're trying to fix all of this. And sometimes the ceiling stones or the bosses themselves are so well hidden, you really can't find them. So the typical thing to do in a game like that is to go online, because Reddit and other places have gamers who just do this constantly. I just, do it as a hobby, even less of a hobby than politics. But, I would like to know, where is this guy? I can't find this boss. Where is he? I can't find the path to the item that helps me upgrade my healing capacity. Very important in this game. Where is it? So you go to Google and you say, okay, where is the shard of Esser that I need to upgrade my healing flask? And it says, okay, here's what you do. You go to this particular spot, you go north. When you see this tree, you make a left. It's very specific and extremely confident is what I'm trying to tell you. And then when you get to the pond, there it is.
Now I see what's
going on. Do you have any other questions? AI tells you.
Right.
And I say, yeah, I'm at the pond. I don't see anything. And it says, well, that's because you're in the wrong place. You need to be in a completely different part of the map. Well, I'm here because you told me to. Yes, I made a mistake, it says. It tells you.
It's honest.
You have to go to this other place over here, and you go, and there's nothing there. And you go, it's nothing there. And they said, yes, because you're still in the wrong place. You have to go in a completely different set, and it's just this loop. And I'm thinking, this is AI? Itself. This is how AI is going to help you?
Yeah, right.
It hasn't helped me one bit. I have to go to YouTube and find somebody playing the game so I can ask them.
I like when they tell you encounter something like that, and then they tell you, in all honesty, there's going to be it's going to do telemedicine.
Yeah.
And you gotta remove your heart. Wow.
Yeah.
Which one is
that?
Oh,
I was wrong about that. I'm so sorry. Wait, why aren't you responding?
Right. Yeah. I mean, honestly, the mistakes that it makes. I don't know. I guess we're still years away from the promise of it, but the most exciting part of AI for me so far has been the people who have invested billions and billions of dollars in it personally, sort of coming to the realization, oh crap, this might be total bust.
Well, that happens in a lot of different places. Since you brought that up and we're into stream of consciousness, I'm going to tell you a different story. But I think that's important because it tells you a little bit about where AI is at. And no, it's not completely there yet. And no, you can't rely on it. And yes, sometimes on the Daily Kos when I'm doing my pundit roundup, I will, in fact, use, let's say, Bloomberg AI summarizing its own story. But I go and check the story and make sure it's accurate before I post it. And I tell people, well, you're using AI. I won't read this. I said, yes, but I checked it, and it's totally accurate, and I'm using it.
Okay. I used it for the first time yesterday, and I found it so confusing that I felt I had to go and read the whole article myself. So, all right.
Yeah. Well, there you go. So, I'm just telling you, if you haven't used AI, it's not there yet. If you have used AI and it's helped you, that's wonderful. Sometimes it does, but I am telling you, it's not there yet.
No, it's not. And by the way, I should clarify. When I say I used it yesterday, that means I opened what I thought was the article, and I got an AI summary instead, and I was like, well, I'm out of time. I better read this. And, then I read it, and I said, I don't know what's happening in this story. I don't.
Yeah, this has not helped me, unfortunately.
Yeah, right. Okay. Well, it's not there yet, and good, fine, terrific. They won't build the Terminator, or if they do, that would be something. What if they build the Terminator, and the Terminator turns around and just shoots the guy that built it? And
I don't know. I feel like if you asked it something like in Michigan, how did Haley Stevens win, and it would give you an entire constructed story.
That's true.
Which sounds remarkably accurate, except she didn't win.
Yeah. You know where I did find it could be usable? I was looking for something I had done years ago, but has disappeared from the internet for various reasons. So stuff that I had written for Congress Matters, which closed down, a million years ago, and there's no
I love Congress Matters. I'm so sorry that closed.
But as it turns out, for years...
It wasn't just Congress Matters, it was because Congress matters.
That's correct. Exactly. And then I remembered, oh, geez, no wonder. This is such a good title for this. Oh, yeah, that's right. It's Media Matters. Oops. Oh, well. Anyway, too late for that. Anyhow, it's gone from the internet, and for years, if you search via Google, because the site was shut down, it was very difficult. You could find remnants of it that other people had copied and pasted, perhaps into their own blogs, which still existed. Now I searched again for something, And this time you could get a whole description of what was going on, but it was AI. And I was like, this actually, I think, is an accurate description of what was once posted. And what's as I, working on things, summaries of things I had worked on in the past, just adding to resume or CV as whichever one you're using. It would give me summaries of things that I had done. I said, oh, yes, I did do that. That's right. It's amazing. And there's no record of it in a Google search, but AI seems to have pieced it together. I'm very famous in AI. This is terrific. Yeah. So it's good for your resume. Good. If you need to ask, what did I do again?
Right.
It can make something up that sounds cool.
Anyway, I just thought I would give you a diatribe on the state of the art with AI.
I'm all right with that.
In real life terms.
Yeah.
So you mentioned
good anecdote.
Spending billions on
data
centers.
Yeah, right.
Let me tell you about a guy who spent billions on politics.
Oh.
And now he's not.
How did that go? Was that also artificial intelligence?
You've heard of Estee Lauder, the cosmetics company? Cosmetics Plus company.
I'm wearing them right now.
The different things. Are you?
No.
I think you look lovely. But I can't tell because you don't have video. You can see me, but I can't see you, so I don't know what you look like.
Yeah, that's
or how rosy your cheeks are, or how long your lashes are. I just can't tell.
The show is drag, and I don't think you know that.
Estee Lauder was the founder. Son of the woman who founded it, Estee, is named Ron Lauder, and he's been an enormous helpful for Republican donor.
Yeah, that was where I was
politics in New York City.
I had a different enormous word. But right. He's very rich, and he lives in the Hamptons, certainly all summer, and he has giant parties, and Republicans go to them, and he gives them money.
His main interest, given that he has a gazillion dollars, is art. And he collects art from pre-World War II Germany and Austria, Clinton, things like that.
Yeah.
And wants to preserve it.
Pre-World War II Germany.
Yeah, and so he set up.
What happened after?
Well, because they weren't doing a lot of art during World War II.
Right, that's true. They were stealing it, and then so he's not buying like Nazi.
Yeah, but the stuff they stole was pre-World War II art.
Yeah, right, had to be. So he's into that.
Yeah, I mean they weren't stealing post-World War II art. It wasn't done yet.
Right, no,
so he's really into that.
Yes.
And then he set up a museum, which I never went to because when I was living on the Upper East Side, when I was intern and resident at Mount Sinai in the Upper East Side. It wasn't built yet. It only happened after I left.
See, that was post-Greg, this museum.
It's the new museum, NIEU or something like that. Anyway, it merged with the Metropolitan, and he's sort of getting out of that, too.
Oh? Okay.
And he was spending his declining years. He's still alive.
They're all declining.
He's like 80-something, All
so right.
He's not decrepit. He's just old.
You're welcome, 80-year-olds.
Yeah. Well, I'm not that far, so I'm careful about what I say. In any case, he gave $11 million to super PACs in 2022 for Lee Zeldin, who was the governor race.
Yeah.
And Bruce Blakeman, who's running against, the New York Democratic governor, Kathy Hochul, was counting on that kind of money. However, his kids got together and said to him,
the Lauder kids.
You're spending, the Lauder grandchildren.
Yeah.
Got together and said, you are spending way too much money on art and politics. If you want to do art, you better cut back on politics.
Okay.
And he said, okay. So he's not giving. So Ron Lauder, closing his checkbook, says Russell Drew on politics, is going to really hurt New York Republicans unless Elon Musk comes to Bruce Blakeman's rescue. Blakeman's going to lose anyway. But now it'll be even less competitive. And as Nicholas Fandos in the New York Times wrote in his story about it, can anyone replace him in New York financially? The simple answer is no.
Oh. Well, Elon Musk certainly could. And not miss it.
He could, but I'm not sure. I think he may want to spend all his money, on people he hates. I'm not sure he hates Hochul enough to spend that kind of money.
I see. Okay. Well, I guess that's up to him. But that's a good story. Good job for the kids. They want to preserve that money. That makes sense.
For themselves, yeah. I totally get that.
I absolutely understand that.
Yeah.
Great problem to have, I suppose. It's a bit of the opposite, I think, of it. Like, I always thought of that as that's good elder care there,
right.
Really paying attention to what the parents are doing.
So we're looking at big picture here.
Unlike the Trump family.
Yeah. So this is Garrett Herron from VoteHub writing that their predictions for Alaska, VoteHub Legacy, which is say polls and fundamentals, gives Mary Peltola a 51.5% chance of winning, which is to say it's a toss-up.
Yeah.
But she's absolutely positively competitive.
Okay.
Their VoteHub Complete is all of that plus Kalshi as a predictor. Kalshi gives Peltola a 57% chance of winning. Not too different. An expert. So you put it all together, and that raises her chance of winning to 52.2, which is to say it's still a toss-up. You got to be more than 65% or so to think that you actually have an edge.
Okay.
All right. So, but she's doing okay. So that's part of the background. When would you ever think Alaska would be even competitive?
Yeah. Well, first, when I found out there were 2 Dan Sullivans, that was the first.
Yeah, and the other is that she's pro-fish. So between those things, she makes it a race.
Yeah.
Now, we've talked a lot about that execrable, POS pond scum Max Miller, who is in Ohio 7.
Yuck.
VoteHub, same place. Democrats are now favored to flip Ohio 7. Moves from tilt R to tilt D. Win probability, Brian Poindexter, 56%.
Go Poindexter.
Up 36 points in the last 2 weeks with this story.
Whew.
Max Miller, incumbent, 44%, down 36 points.
All right.
It's a Trump plus 11 district. And Poindexter, don't ever argue with a guy named Poindexter. He's too smart for you. So Trump plus 11... And it's just this is the background for everything we're going to say about Michigan.
All right. So
Maine's
the plan there.
Senate poll for majority PAC. Hart Research. Hart is pretty good pollster. Troy Jackson 49, Susan Collins 45. She must be troubled by this. Job approval, Senator Collins -6, President Trump -24, Jackson favorability. You can't give him a job approval. He doesn't have a job. Jackson favorability, at least in politics, 47-35, so that's +12. So the +12 guy's running against the -6 lady, and Trump is -24, dragging it all down. Troy Jackson's job, the lumberjack, is to tie Susan Collins to the railroad tracks,
and then chop her down.
And say, pay the rent.
Yeah.
his job.
Good. All right.
His job is to tie her to Trump in every possible way, just like every other Democratic candidate running is to do the same. And that goes for Mike Rogers in Michigan. We'll get to him.
Okay.
Again, background. Interactive Polls is summarizing this for us. The generic ballot among likely voters. Field dates July 17th to August 4th, so it's relatively recent, but still before Labor Day.
Right, true. Watch your pants.
Emerson, Dems plus 11. Big Data, that's a poll. Dems plus 11. The Argument, Dems plus 10. Clarity Campaign, Dems plus 10. JL Partners, Dems plus 9. Marquette, Dems plus 6. Qantas, Dems plus 6. Average, 51.3 Democrat. D plus 8.7 over the 42.6 for Republicans. So they're leading in the generic ballot way more than enough to win. You got to be up by 4 to win with redistricting and all that sort of garbage in a non-level playing field, but almost 9 is plenty to do it. Still early, can still go up. And even the, as we talked about yesterday, the slow realizers of this blue wave, like Ipsos, are still going up.
Okay.
So that's background. It's background for all of this. While this is happening, we talked a lot about governor. We sort of mentioned some of the other races in Michigan, but there were interesting ones.
Oh,
let's for example, do I think this is Michigan 8th congressional district.
Michigan.
A candidate drops out and has done no fundraising, but he will be the Republican nominee after Trump endorsed guy loses. And Dave Weigel summarizes this, and he gives the graphic of the New York Times story here. The Trump guy is named Amir Hassan.
Okay.
And he got 33.8% of the vote because nobody in the Republican Party wanted to vote for this guy because of his name, even though Trump said it was all right. Instead, they voted for the guy that dropped out named Thomas Smith.
He dropped out.
Tom Smith. I mean, you couldn't be more generic,
sure,
right?
Right,
Vanilla.
yeah.
And he gets 49.8% of the vote without running and already dropped out.
Tom Smith, that's it.
It's a Trump +2 district. And Smith, who has suspended his campaign, is going to win the primary against the Trump-endorsed candidate. Well, and the other funny thing is that they have a picture of Amir Hassan, who looks like a nice young man, happens to be of color.
He is. Hassan Chop.
And Thomas Smith has no headshot at all.
Well, he dropped out.
Well, the other guy
Hassan chopped his head off.
In the race named Al Lemmo, Lemmo, gets 16% of the vote. He doesn't have a headshot either.
How come
so they
he
didn't
didn't
bother with these guys. They figured they couldn't win. It's not how it turned out.
Tom Smith, if that is his real name.
Thomas J. Smith, a retired engineer who exited the race in mid-July, pulled in 50% of the vote in Tuesday's Republican primary. Though Smith suspended his campaign and backed the third candidate, Al Lemmo, his name remained on the ballot. Smith, a largely unknown entity, told the FEC in a July letter his campaign had raised a total of $1,850, which, according to ABC News,
that's very efficient.
It's significantly less than the $700,000 that Hassan raised.
Well, significant.
I would say that's accurate.
Relative,
it is significantly less than the $700,000 that Hassan
I think so. Very efficient campaign. $1,000, win the race. I love the back. Now, let me just reiterate one of the facts you threw in there in that reading. So, Amir Hassan gets Trump's endorsement.
Right.
Thomas Smith drops out and endorses Lemmo.
Mm-hmm.
But Smith still wins. It's like this is the one nobody endorsed. Not even Tom Smith endorsed himself. He endorsed the other guy.
Right.
And still won. This is terrific. What a formula.
Right. Now that he wins, he says, and I'm totally behind Donald Trump.
My new consultancy will be about, I advise you to drop out and endorse someone else. Yeah. But you'll win. Don't worry about it. I have a track record. Maybe you've heard of
this
Michigan
is interesting
8.
Because Hassan is the first Trump-endorsed congressional candidate to lose.
Okay. Congratulations. He is not Muslim, as I understand it, either. He just has that name.
He's not. But he is black.
Oh, well, that's 2 strikes, I guess, in Trump world.
So, and he has a Thomas Smith.
He's black. He's Muslim. Strike 1. Black.
Yeah, he's a Navy veteran. He's a law enforcement officer. But, he had this name.
I guess so. Wow. So even I mean, I don't know.
There's no other explanation, by the way. You cannot come up with an explanation for otherwise why there's no scandal.
No.
He's got a sterling track record. If you're a conservative, law enforcement, military, Trump endorsement.
It's just interesting. Like I don't know when I would have heard about Trump's endorsement in Michigan's 8th district, but I assume they heard it there.
Right.
Put it on the radio or something.
Now Haley Stevens and Abdul El-Sayed had a race.
Yes.
And as of now, 99% of the vote in. Abdul El-Sayed gets 48.5. Haley Stevens get 47.5. Mallory McMorrow, who had suspended her campaign, gets 4%.
Okay.
So Aaron Blake looked at this and said, between the suspended GOP candidate apparently beating the Trump-backed guy and McMorrow taking 4% in a race decided by around 1%, this is a big day for non-candidates.
Yeah, this is terrific. I'm also not running in Michigan, and if you guys would like to write me in, I guess go for it. I'm not. If elected, I will not serve.
Yeah,
just pointing that out. But wow, that's a good story, and that's a real mask off moment there for the Michigan 8th District MAGA folks.
Yep.
Wow.
Now, on the Democratic side, screw-ups include Michigan 7. What happened here is that there were 2 moderates, each of whom refused to pull out. Bridget Brink, career Foreign Service officer, resigned as ambassador to Ukraine, if you recognize her name.
Oh, no, I didn't, but that's...
She was backed by the Democratic Women's Caucus, and Matt Mazdam, retired Navy SEAL, military aide to former President Obama, supported by Elisa Slotkin, and
really?
I think some of the establishment people in Michigan.
Okay.
And they split the moderate vote, the 2/3 of the moderate vote in this district, and the 1/3 vote went to William Lawrence, co-founder of the progressive climate organization Sunrise Movement, endorsed by the Congressional Progressive Caucus and Bernie Sanders. So Lawrence wins because he splits the vote, and people are saying he's going to go on to lose.
Oh. Well, but it's his race to lose. I guess.
Right.
That is to say,
and
he'll be the one that loses
people
it.
in Michigan are saying, I don't understand this.
doesn't.
Why did Slotkin do Mazda? Why didn't they rally behind Brink? That's what should have happened. I don't understand any of this.
Yeah, I don't know either. My guess is
your guess?
Navy SEAL. And by the way, I'm at the point, just so all of you running know, if I have a choice, and I have a wide range of choices, and one of you is a Navy SEAL or former Navy SEAL, I tend to say, you know what? I don't want to get involved. Navy SEALs, not a sterling track record in terms of their activity in politics. Mostly among the Republican ones, to be sure. There are a couple of Democrats who also, or who Navy SEAls.
This guy was a Democrat.
Who have gone on to run and win. And I don't know. But to me, I feel like when you make the decision as another politician to endorse the one that was the Navy SEAL, I feel like it was a lazy decision, and they were then they were just saying, I don't know, toss Navy SEAL. Everybody loves the Navy SEAls. Yeah, we'll go with the Navy SEAL, but I don't think that's an automatic. It shouldn't be, and we should do everything we can to disempower the magical political allure of Navy SEAls. As Navy SEAls, they're fantastic. Stay there. Stay in your lane.
You know what's really a little odd?
What?
I'm going to give you an article by Thomas Edsall after the break about the dynamic force of democratic socialists, pluses and minuses about their movement. Plenty written about that.
Yes.
Oh, nobody writes about the pluses and minuses of being a Navy SEAL. Nobody bothers.
Right. You had to come here for that show to hear that totally uninformed opinion. But you can override it. You can feel free to do it if you have a very special Navy SEAL or somebody who would just happen to be a Navy SEAL for a little while and then whatever went on to. But I think if you are riding on that, and I think mostly, it's very often it's the Republicans who are doing it that way. Others, the Democrats tend to have, I was a Navy SEAL for like 4 years, and then I did something else for 20, and now I'm running. I feel better about that. But I feel like Luria is the kind of person who would fall for definitely endorse the Navy SEAL no matter who else is running. I guess she did.
That's Virginia too, and I would absolutely go with Elaine Luria.
Hi, Kagro in the Morning listeners. This is Rebecca Romans, longtime listener and longtime supporter of the show. Do you love your non-corporatized, completely independent, commercial-free Kagro in the Morning show? Do you stand out among the crowd at the office water cooler when discussing current events because of all the up-to-the-minute news you've been brought by David Waldman? Then it's time to give back a little. David relies on contributions from listeners like you and me to keep this show on the air. Patreon.com is among the easiest ways to make secure recurring monthly donations to support the show. Patreon.com/KagroX will bring you straight to his donation page, where you can sign up for any convenient tier you like. A mere $5 a month. You'll never miss it. Works out to about 25 cents a show. That means that David is making 12.5 cents an hour, which, by coincidence, is exactly what the GOP wants to lower the federal minimum wage to. Once again, David is ahead of the curve. If Patreon.com doesn't sound like your kind of thing, there's always PayPal, or even the Square Cash app. Any way you choose to donate, please choose to donate. And thank you on behalf of David and the rest of us listeners. Thank you very much.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. The break for me was realizing I have a real hang-up and I cannot separate mentally. There are 3 women politicians, 2 Democrats and 1 Republican. I now have the Republican set apart in my mind. She's done enough to become infamous. But all E first names. And I think on our way out, I meant to say that if I feel like Slotkin was the one who would, maybe make the easy decision, the simple and probably deceptive decision to back the Navy SEAL. Everyone is gonna laud them as heroes, and nothing stands up. I'm simplifying the decision. She's probably had a very sophisticated rationale, but I don't know. But I confused at least Slotkin with Elaine Luria. Elaine Luria? Is it Elaine? Yeah. Okay. Who I also used to mix up with.
Who was excellent when she was in Congress, by the way.
Okay, and I felt like did they all come up at the more or less the same time? But in Elaine and Elise and another Elise and Stefanik, I now have separated in my mind. But you'll frequently find me saying I don't remember the difference who's from which state. I don't know which one anymore. Even one of the ones from Virginia. Not my area of Virginia. If she was my congresswoman or had been, then I probably would remember her. But sorry about that. I got the wrong.
No, she's Southeast Virginia, and you're Northeast.
Yes.
Virginia.
Okay.
Northern Virginia, sort of.
That's right. Yes, we're as north as it gets here in Virginia.
Yeah.
All right.
So,
sorry, Elise.
Here's other things that matter besides the
good Elise.
Phenomenon of whether or not you're a white girl with an E first name.
That's it.
And that is because they all look alike to me.
I'm going to have to look them all up now.
All white women with the letter E as their first name look the same. I can't tell the difference. I totally
too.
understand why you got them confused. Except I've figured out that Stefanik is best referred to as her last name, and so you don't make that mistake.
Yeah. Right, true. And she just had many more stories about her being terrible.
She's awful.
Helps in my
she's
mind.
Terrible. She really is. Anyway, New York Times. This is Tom Edsall writing.
They
the
don't
easiest
look
explanation
that
for this phenomena is that ideology really matters. When Edsall writes columns, he finds a few facts, and then he emails political scientists who actually write him back, and then he uses their quotes in the article, and it's not a bad living. So, no more dynamic force. There is no more dynamic force in democratic politics, bar none, than the Democratic Socialists of America.
Okay. I thought
at the same time,
no more force.
The liabilities surrounding the socialist label threaten to limit potential center-left gains. A Washington Post Ipsos poll released Thursday illustrates this problem. 75% of Democratic voters have no problem with it, and in general, younger voters have no problem with socialism. But among all registered voters, a majority, 54 to 42, said they would not consider supporting a Democratic Socialist presidential candidate driven by Republicans and independents. Republicans 88 to 10, other voters 54 to 36. Of course, socialist candidates won't have this problem because Republicans insist on saying they're not socialists, they're communists, and it's so stupid that not even independents will fall for it, so I don't know if that flies. Even more decisive, says Edsall, were the responses when the Post Ipsos poll asked, how much do you like or dislike political leaders who identify as democratic socialists? And probably, you're thinking of Bernie when you say that. A third, 33% of Democrats said they like him. Among all voters, 42% said they don't. And Republicans, 70 to 3 dislike him, and independents and other voters, 30 to 12. So in other words, when it comes to socialism, Democratic voters are the outliers. But in terms of actual politics, this is where he writes the political scientist and basically gets somewhere between 0 and 5 point penalty for being a democratic socialist. Of course, it depends upon which district. Everybody knows that. I'm just talking about the generics of it. And here's the other thing. If you think that it ranges from 0 to 5 points, and you think it ranges closer to 0, then it doesn't really matter. And if you think it is 0 to 5 points, and you think it's more like the 5-point penalty, well, I already told you we're talking about a Democratic +7 environment.
Yes.
So a 5-point penalty isn't enough to drag you down. You win anyway.
Okay. Well.
All right. Ooh. So I think that's the background that you have to therefore turn and look at Michigan and what's going on there.
All right.
That's so where let's start with Big Gretch. She's the governor there.
All right.
And I got a video for you.
Totally different name, easy to understand. By the way, as I was looking the three of them up, you could make the case for the three of them looking confusingly similar as well.
At first glance, you have to know exactly who they are.
Yeah.
Which by now I do, but at the time I didn't. I don't know what
flashcards
looks like.
No way.
But I know what Slotkin and Stefanik look like, and I wouldn't mistake one for the other.
No, I think Stefanik has become infamous enough that I now recognize her. But if you showed me pictures of Slotkin and Luria, I'd be like, not only do I not know which one, I don't know who either of them are.
Right.
But I know their names.
If you could play the Whitmer video.
Right. Totally different person. Ready? Gretchen Whitmer.
Congratulations to Jocelyn Benson, Abdul El-Sayed, and every Democrat who won up and down the ballot. They've got my support as we fight like hell together to win in November. The MAGA Republican agenda has led to higher prices and inflation here in Michigan and all across the country. We know John James, Mike Rogers, and Republicans on the ticket will be a rubber stamp for the Trump agenda, including their failed tariff policies that have jacked up the price of gas and groceries for Michigan families. On the other hand, Democrats in Michigan are fighting to lower costs, build more affordable housing, make healthcare affordable and accessible, and so much more. There's a lot of passion and energy in these primaries, and that's a good thing. Democrats are ready to beat Republicans across the state. We're all united by our shared goal, getting things done for the people of Michigan. We know there's so much on the line this November.
Oh, you can drop it. I mean,
okay,
you got the important points out of it. My point is, this video came out like 15 minutes after El-Sayed won.
Oh, okay.
Haley Stevens endorsed him like 15 minutes. Mallory McMorrow endorsed him 10 minutes after he won. Everybody in the Democratic establishment in Michigan immediately rallied around El-Sayed.
Okay, good.
So you can have a really tough primary and then do this. And what I'm saying is that's what you have to do if you have a divisive primary. I'm looking at Texas.
Yeah, Texas.
And you got to rally around the person who's there, and that's the model. Now, in Texas, you can't have that in terms of the establishment because the establishment is all Republican.
Oh, yeah, okay.
And they did it for Paxton, but that's what you expect. Yeah, and so there's a lot of eyes on Jasmine Crockett, who thinks Tallarico can't win, and she said so. She did endorse him, but she's doing almost nothing to help him. And, just saying, she wants a future in politics. That ain't the way to do it. Haley Stevens has a future.
I guess so. Well, that I'm not positive of, but she's certainly doing the right thing. Okay,
maybe by appointment. I'm not saying she can win, but she might be able to win a congressional seat again if she runs.
Sure, it's entirely possible.
Well, she only lost by this time, like 1 percentage point
last time. Yeah, that's true. It was a lot closer than we discussed. That was yesterday's story. A lot closer than the polling said. No videos from the pollsters saying why they were wrong.
Right, not yet. So this is Elliot Morris, Strength in Numbers, and his story today is nobody actually knows if El-Sayed is the weaker Michigan Senate candidate, which is a really interesting
That is
thing.
right. We don't know yet.
Former Wayne County Health Director, Wayne County is where Detroit is, Abdul El-Sayed won the Democratic primary for Michigan's open Senate seat on Tuesday night, defeating Representative Haley Stevens by roughly 1 percentage point. The result was closer than pollsters projected, which some centrist pro-Stevens Democrats cheered as evidence of El-Sayed's lack of general election appeal. In recent weeks, the Stevens campaign and his allies spent much of their time and money arguing El-Sayed is too progressive to win. I find these debates about electability tiring and usually damningly devoid of data. The reality is, if you look at the data, the polls, fundamentals, that win above replacement thing that like Jane does for the argument as to why the penalty for being a socialist is 0 to 5, that Tom Edsall was talking about. The two candidates look like they would have done roughly the same this November, and that's what the actual polls say.
All right.
These numbers come from the polling averages that power our new election model over at 50+1, when pre-primary polls asked Michigan voters who they would vote for, Mike Rogers or insert Democrat. Stevens had a tiny lead of 0.2 points. El-Sayed trailed Rogers by 1.5 points. That's a gap of 2 points. I have noted that's margin of error stuff, and you can't really tell from that who wins. That's like saying Mary Peltola is favored in Alaska by 52-48, and therefore she wins. No, it doesn't mean it wins. It means it's a toss-up. But it's worth noting that El-Sayed had been polling better than Stevens versus Roger a month ago, so there's a margin of error around this estimate. What's more, Stevens' apparent edge is driven almost entirely by one poll from the Glenn Gariff group, which, by the way, came closest to getting it right, and they picked Stevens by 7. Depending on the poll you pick, El-Sayed does between 10 to 13 points better or worse. I mean, just an enormous range.
Yes.
Right? If you're running Stevens versus Rogers in Mitchell research, Rogers wins by 4.7, but El-Sayed wins by 5.6. That's on the one side. And on the other side, Epic MRA, which is probably Michigan's best pollster, maybe, because it's really hard to poll statewide. Stevens versus Rogers, Stevens up 2.3, Rogers, and El-Sayed versus Rogers is down 3.4. I mean, they're all close. The exact gap for Stevens depends upon which polls you include. And accounting for uncertainty across the poll results is no statistically significant difference between how the candidates polled for the November election. Again, I go back to a +7 environment for Democrats.
Okay.
So if you're not sure, and it's close, and you're talking about a 1 to 2 point difference between candidates, that's no difference at all, is what I'm saying.
All right. Fair enough.
Right? So to be extra sure we're properly analyzing uncertainty in this very important statistic, we use simulation here. In 1,000 different simulations, randomly choose 11 polls, one from each pollster, so that you're not biasing yourself.
Oh.
And this process, which statisticians call bootstrapping, produces an uncertainty interval around the average difference in the candidates, and the results can be visualized, and there's really no difference. So the smart answer to the question, would Stevens have done better than El-Sayed? The answer is, I don't know. And that's not all.
Why are we
the other problem is it's nowhere near November.
Yeah, sure. And
so between those two things, don't make statements about what's going to happen. You have no frickin' idea what's going to happen.
Yeah, yet. I mean, if I was looking for a point of differentiation to start with in making an analysis, how will I vote? Okay, tell me how the candidates do head to head. Okay, all right. Well, it's pretty close, but one consistently seems to pull ahead. But yeah, do I think if I'm just saying, I'm actually more inclined to vote for the other one anyway. If that's the case, do I take that as definitive that they were losing the head-to-heads? Not when they were that close, and not when there's a whole campaign season to justify being the ballot pick, and everybody begins to say, well, I was for the other one, but now I got to beat the Republicans. So, and then I guess it's worth asking the question, and if you get some kind of definitive answer, well, one is wins in 90% of trials, and the other one has never led. Okay, that's something.
Yeah.
But, all right.
So I just think it's interesting to look at it that way. If you try to put it into the data, you're basically saying there's about a point difference between them. As H. Ross Perot used to say, there's not a dime's worth the difference between them.
Yeah,
that's true.
He had a lot of dimes, so he knows.
Yeah.
You know how it is with rich people and being smart.
Right.
Sure.
Now, notice news of the United States.
Oh, yes. Okay.
Which is going to name itself Star at some point, rename itself, but they can't because there's a Washington Star or something, so it's all,
there
in court. Michigan hands the Democratic establishment another brutal loss. Abdul El-Sayed's narrow win is a low point for the center-left as Democrats head toward November. This is Alex Rorty, who I think is a very good political analyst. It was outmaneuvered and overwhelmed by a progressive insurgency whose chosen candidates, backed by a furious liberal base, smashed their way to victories. Low point for the center-left the Democratic leaders can climb out of, party strategists say, but only with a radical readjustment of how they operate. In other words, the Democratic establishment is not in a position. They're not popular enough. They are unpopular enough. They can't kingmake. They can't decide, unlike Trump, who's going to wind up being the nominee. They really ought to. There was an era where they wouldn't get involved in primaries. That's probably a smarter position to take.
Yeah.
But they don't take it because they feel like, we know better than you little people, so we're going to tell you who to vote for. And it's not working.
Okay. Good.
The choice to support Stevens was emblematic of a larger problem with how party leaders anoint candidates at some Democratic strategists, and a failure to properly understand just how angry their own party's voters were with the old way of conducting politics. They value seniority over talent, a fundraising Rolodex over ability to make voter connection, institutional comfort over anger, and change that voters are actually demanding, says Liz Smith, who's often wrong, but a veteran Democratic strategist. She was Mallory McMorrow's guru.
Well, but there's your answer.
That statement is still true. And it's, I would give a little twist, a little different.
Me
for
too.
Reasons that you have pointed out.
Oh, well, then that's the reason. Yeah.
They value seniority over talent. No, they don't. They value incumbency over talent.
True.
Because the Democratic establishment organizations in D.C. are built to support incumbents.
Right.
And incumbents raise money for each other.
Incumbents.
And so when they say value seniority, that's not really what they're saying. They would value a young incumbent over talent.
That is also true. Yes, that's a good point. And we should reiterate, I mean, when we say it's built for incumbents, it's also built by incumbents. That's their money, and that's the organization that they built. This is, I mean, it's, I guess, akin to complaining, well, the AARP, they keep advocating for stuff for old people. Why don't they read the room, advocate for the young?
I'm 23, read the room. What's going on here?
It's not that we dislike young people. It's that this is an old person organization, and it advocates for old people.
We're going to run a poll for everybody over 65 and who they're going to vote for. Well, who cares? What about us? Well, it's a different organization.
Yeah. I mean, it's but you know, I mean, you pick the language that makes your point the best. It's called spin. Everybody does it. But yeah, not only do they value incumbency, but they value, for instance, the sort of things that we were all just singing the praises of, coming together behind a nominated candidate and helping other Democrats win. Those are the values. Those are the founding principles of the organizations.
Right.
If that turns you off, you can donate your money in a different way. It's really not something that people, I don't think, except for millionaires, should be thinking of. You know, I'm going to be making continuing donations to these organizations. You're turning your money over to,
right.
You might be in alignment with them, in which case, go ahead. But they're not meant to be fundraising vehicles for the grassroots average person.
No, and they aren't. But also the choices made aren't made for the grassroots.
Right.
That's really the issue here.
Yes.
And so, let me give you an example.
All right.
I have an excellent senator named Chris Murphy. Progressive, certainly center-left, if not more so. Very articulate on foreign policy issues, which he is incredibly skilled with. He's a good communicator. I think he is going to, if you asked him, and maybe he already has, endorsed John Larson running in Connecticut 1 against Luke Bronin, the former mayor of Hartford, who is an insurgent and who just might win in this environment.
Mm-hmm.
Chris Murphy's an incumbent. John Larson is an incumbent. Incumbents are going to support incumbents. It's just the way it is. I'm not mad at Murphy for doing that. I don't even know if I support Bronin. It's not my district. But that's just how it works. It's just how it works.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we hate how it works, and that's why we're voting the way. Okay, I get it. It's true.
Yeah.
They value seniority over talent, a fundraising Rolodex over ability to make genuine voter connections. Abdul El-Sayed is a much better communicator than Haley Stevens. He's just a really good political animal in that regard.
All right. Yeah.
Did the establishment incumbents support him? No, they did not.
No.
Institutional comfort over the anger and change voters are actually demanding. That's important. Another line here, Democratic voters, said another party strategist, were shouting from the rooftops about their anger. We talked about this yesterday. What they're angry about is that nobody seems to have done enough to stop Trump, even though Democrats are doing pretty well with the poor hand that they have been dealt. They don't have enough votes. And the way to get them more votes isn't to vote against them.
Right. Yeah, generally speaking.
Generally speaking. Now, if you have somebody who you think can win, that's fine. People no longer trust Democratic establishment, incumbent, cozy, club type thinking about who really is the better person positioned to win. Perfect example, El-Sayed and Haley Stevens, according to the data, as we just discussed, there ain't a dime's worth of difference between them.
Okay.
So you can't use that as a reason to vote one over the other. And if it's not electability, what is it? Why are you picking the incumbent? Well, it's because they're the incumbent.
Yeah.
We are incumbents. That's what we do.
Right.
Where else do you see it? I'll tell you where else you see it.
Okay.
Who wants to run the Democratic National Committee?
Oh, yeah. Not me. You're not
asking
me, are you?
Ben Wickler.
Yeah.
But we know Ken Martin.
Yes.
Who's turned out to be a disaster.
Right, true.
I mean, there couldn't be a better example of what we're talking about here.
I agree. That is a very good example, right? I mean, you got to remember who the electorate for this stuff is. They don't choose the DNC chair by asking rank and file Democrats across the country, grassroots, who would you prefer? Sometimes they pretend to, but the answer, though, is those ballots are cast by members of the Democratic National Committee already. And if you have been eating rubber chicken with this guy for 10 years and you remember him over and over and over again versus, hey, I like this Ben Wickler guy, but I don't know, he's been the Wisconsin chair. I remember that, but I never spent time with him in the room anyway.
Ken Martin, who is another state leader who we do know, has promised us more power.
Oh, well, then that'll do it.
Yep.
That also will work.
Is that a bad idea?
No.
Yep.
No, not really, but I don't know. Well, what
you
kind
can
of
support
power?
the organization, but don't give more voice to the state party chair. Look at the state party chair in New York.
Oh, well, I guess okay.
Who's awful and wound up supporting Andrew Cuomo's rump Republic. I mean, rump Democrats who voted with Republicans in the state Senate. It's not automatic that just because you're the state chair in a party, you're any good.
No, that's clearly not.
But you may have been there a long time.
I thought you were talking about giving rank and file DNC members more power in.
No, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about giving power to the very state chairs that, like in New Jersey, you may not be particularly thrilled with because they supported county line stuff on the ballot.
Yeah,
which gave an advantage to incumbents.
Is at least there. Well, why did they rise to the top of the state party? Well, again, they've been around and shake hands and hand out money and backslap with people, and it's a social game. Sorry.
Well, yes, but it is, and so people need to understand that. And when that happens, you make incredibly bad choices, like Ken Martin.
Sometimes.
So, Democratic voters, said another party strategist, were shouting from the rooftops about their anger. That same person said, if we don't actually respect and respond to this frustration, we're going to wind up with heads in a basket.
I guess so.
And Ken Martin's the first head that's going to roll.
This does require, though, for people who are angry and upset about it and want to build something new, standing up and being the next backslapper in the room. You can have your own values, but you're going to have to get in.
Ben Wickler was there. He proved what he could do in Wisconsin. Without him, they're floundering. Yeah. I don't know what the issue is here, folks.
Nothing. I don't think it is. I imagine he's a future DNC chair if he'll remain in the game.
Job. But this is
sometimes you lose a couple.
Senator instead, I think, from Wisconsin. But that's a different story.
Well, you got your choice.
Democratic Party leaders counter that they've mostly gotten their way in primaries this year and could be poised for a big midterm. In part because of successful candidate recruitment from Texas to North Carolina. We're talking about moderate normie Dems. James Tallarico is a moderate normie Dem, Texas style. Roy Cooper, Mary Peltola, with the advantage of being pro-fish in Alaska. And, of course, they all lead in public polling as President Donald Trump's approval rating sags. Gas prices are still high. Voters say they're still feeling cost of living. Does this matter? Yeah, it puts not just the House but the Senate in play. Unlikely possibility just 2 years ago. Both the DNC and Democratic Senatorial Campaign Committee quickly rallied around El-Sayed. Kirsten Gillibrand is head of the DSCC, and Democratic Senate Leader Chuck Schumer said in a statement El-Sayed had inspired thousands of Michiganders, the parties united behind him. So not only the local people, Whitmer, Slotkin, I think Gary Peters, don't quote me on that, but I believe.
Who knows?
Certainly McMorrow, all the Michigan Democrats rallied behind him almost immediately. So did the national people.
Yeah, I'm sure.
But it was still a setback, and there's still.
I'm sure Peters too.
People will look at that and say that's all well and good, but you picked Janet Mills.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, you picked Graham Plattner. Yeah, well, like everybody sucks.
Yeah, I guess you both got that one wrong. Nobody had Troy Jackson in that sweepstakes.
Michael Bennet of Colorado failed to clinch his gubernatorial race, which revolved around his closeness to Washington leadership. That's a minus, not a plus, guys.
True. You switched games, and you got to be state coded, and you're Washington coded, and that didn't work.
Right.
All right.
So again, November's the ultimate scorecard, and winning smooths over a lot of things. Losing's going to be, opening up a lot as well.
Right. We'll have to have
but people are angry. They are frustrated. They don't see this happening. They're sick and tired of incumbents. I don't care what your reasoning is behind why incumbents support incumbents. Whatever you're doing, you wind up I'm just poor Ken. I'm using you as an example because it's emblematic of what the problem is. But you keep picking people like Ken Martin, and then you tell us to, eat that shit sandwich, and we're supposed to like it. That's not happening. We are coming with pitchforks and torches to the primaries, and we are electing different people, and too bad for you if you don't like it.
See, you got to put up a name. That's all, right? I'm angry. All right, and what would you like to do instead? I'm
voting for this other person who has a name. That's what it means.
Yes, well, sometimes they can actually manifest it that way, but very often early in the game, I don't know. I just know that I'm mad. Well, bring me a name. Put one on the ballot, and then we'll have a contest. I might not endorse that person.
Anyway, there it is. That's the analysis.
After the primary.
Only G. Elliott Morris has the data. I'm just doing by feels and vibes, but I think that's what's going on.
We're adding that. That's important. We have to add the feels and vibes to this. Otherwise, they would all be. Does he do a podcast? He should do a podcast. G. Elliott Morris, get a microphone.
He does. He does it with David Neer from.
How come I don't know this?
From the old Daily Cuss. He does once a week.
Once a week? Oh, yeah. Please. No wonder I haven't taken notice.
Yeah.
All right. Well, David Neer does one the other days of the week with 10 other people. So
David Neer's an old friend of ours.
That's who you should
very, very good.
To. Yes. Forget it. Turn this off. Go. Yeah. Go listen to David. I think well worth doing. Okay, but I don't know. I hadn't heard G. Elliott Morris. He's not doing it daily, and if he was, he wouldn't be able to do these numbers.
I don't think he does it at a specific time like we do. You have to go to.
Like a normal podcaster. Does it
well, you have to go to Substack and then find them, and then you find it there, and, you listen when you want.
Right. People with guests. Give your own feels. You got enough of them. We've been around long enough. We're our own guests.
Anyway, that's the story for this week. I'll see you next week.
Yes, thank you very much. That carries us all the way through. A little bit of AI story in there, a little bit of women with the first name that begins with an E, and politics.
I did eventually get my Yakasani Magatanga, just so you know.
Oh, okay. Well, congratulations.
It just took a really long time.
Yeah.
And I didn't use AI to do it.
Okay. Well, that's good news. Yeah, I like that. Oh, by the way, and you use as a different so search engines. You were telling me during our discussions, and I think when we talked about it on the air, you said you looked on Google, but in case, what was it? Well, that's where you got the bad information. The good information.
Yeah, I didn't try ChatGPT, or maybe it is ChatGPT. I can't tell the difference. Or OpenAI. I don't know which one is which.
Claude. I don't know. Right. Grok.
Fred.
Basically, it's after that.
2000. I don't know.
But I think, you found, like a lot of people are finding, the search engines that then direct you into AI, whether you want it or not, are increasingly ineffective in giving you correct answers. And more people, I find, in my personal life are saying, you got to ask that question of Reddit. It's answered by other people. They are sometimes just as confused as you are, but at least you can understand them. Reddit.
By the way, Rand Paul hit Anthony Fauci with contempt of Congress.
Oh, terrific. Yeah, that was in the offing for today. I will tell you more about that when we come back. Thanks, Greg. Good. See you next week. All right, welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. While we were away, Greg let me know that while we were talking earlier, the GOP senators have held their vote on the committee, at the committee level, to hold Anthony Fauci in contempt of Congress for doing what? For pleading the fifth during his earlier hearings. I knew that was in the offing. I had a story set aside pre-vote discussing the issues involved, and we'll probably go over those things. It will still do us good to know. But yes, they went ahead and did their thing, and now there's some question about what exactly it means. Maybe I'll turn back the clock and do the backgrounder that I had put aside from the New York Times, because they're among the more aggressive in marketing their materials to me, but I think has to do with the old subscription thing. It's basically you ask for it, so they fill my inbox. The Hill does it for free. Let's see, the San Francisco Chronicle and Denver. Is it Denver the Post too? Do it against my will. So I can't stop them. I've tried. Anyway, the New York Times article I was going to share with you earlier, but didn't because I wanted to talk about better stuff like AI, was Senate panel. They've now updated. The Senate panel votes to hold Fauci in contempt. The original headline on their piece at the time was Fauci faces contempt vote. Here are the legal issues involved. But now I can tell you that they've updated their headline and probably the body of the story. And then I don't need necessarily the NBC News version of it. I can get it all in one place. Good, that's a time saver. The case is unique, legal scholars say, because of the tension between the Fifth Amendment and the reach of a presidential pardon. The potential consequences could be grave. That's true, and I guess everybody's just sort of stretching the boundaries here, stretching the definitions of things. The issuance of the pardon from Biden was so that we wouldn't find ourselves here. But, you know, I guess one interpretation is it prevents you from bringing criminal charges against him. However, if you were to try him for a civil contempt of Congress and or court, I suppose you could still bring those charges forward. But if you're charging him with a criminal contempt, there would be more question. And then, of course, if it's coming from Congress versus the executive branch, law enforcement, the normal course of events in bringing criminal charges, let's say. But does it apply as against contempt of Congress, which is not a criminal charge? I mean, I guess you could charge it criminally, but so there's remember the differences between the contempts, both of Congress, I guess, and the courts. Civil contempt of court is meant to make you comply with an order with which you are refusing to comply and can actually land you in jail longer. You can be imprisoned or fined or whatever until you comply, and it can keep compounding, versus criminal contempt of court, which is we're going to give you a flat penalty for having done what you did, 30 days in jail, 3 months in jail. And everybody is reminded that it's a real thing, and that what's his name? Peter Navarro actually went and had to go to jail for criminal contempt of Congress. Did Bannon ever go to jail? I can't recall whether that was ever the case or not. I think he's slipped through the cracks on that one. So they now say, well, then we should be able to apply that to Fauci too. But Fauci's sitting on a pardon. That makes all the difference. Or will it? Right. They can ask that question, and they can harass him and make him spend several $100,000 or even $1 million defending his pardon. Plus, of course, the Republicans are also persuaded of the theory that, Biden signed it with an auto pen, which we're not even certain that he did, but even if he did, it shouldn't make any difference. But they say it should make a difference because reasons. Now, there may be different legal reasoning that ends up creating jeopardy of some kind for Fauci, but in the popular lore among MAGA troops and other Republicans, it will be because auto pen in their minds. And they'll just say, if it wasn't true, if the auto pen wasn't true, then how come XYZ has just happened to Fauci? Well, totally different reasons. I don't want to hear it. Well, anyway, let's lay out what some of those reasons might be. I guess Jan Hoffman has written this piece for the Times and again updated it to include the news that the committee has just voted. And I don't even remember which committee it was. Rand Paul is the chair of what committee that was? I mean, is it? Okay, interesting. Chair of the Senate Homeland Security. Let's see. So Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs, and I'm trying to think whether there are some committees that have sort of their own subpoena process and presumably might have their own contempt of Congress procedures, and that's usually like the Judiciary Committee will have its own, and other committees, sometimes have to get the approval of the entire chamber in order to actually subpoena somebody, and certainly to move to contempt of Congress, you'd need very often floor consideration of the measure. We'll see where we are procedurally, perhaps. And if it's unclear, we'll have to do our own research on the internet, and you know how that goes. We'll also tell you what you can do about treating your illnesses that way. A Senate committee voted Thursday to hold Dr. Anthony S. Fauci, not the other one, the scientist who led the country's COVID response, in contempt of Congress for declining to answer questions during hearing last week. But will the courts uphold it? There's nothing to uphold yet. You can hold somebody in contempt of, or you can vote to hold them in contempt of Congress, but now it's up to either the executive branch to actually prosecute the crime or for the Congress to decide that they're holding him in inherent contempt of Congress and are going to do something about it. But in the usual course of events, what we have here is a committee decision to say, yes, we would like the Senate to hold him in contempt of Congress, and we have to ask the Senate that question next. Then it's a question of who will enforce it and will the courts uphold it? But we'll jump right to that question because Jan Hoffman did, and with good reason. Dr. Fauci invoked his constitutional right under the Fifth Amendment to remain silent, refusing to respond to a single question during the 3-hour session of the Senate Homeland Security Committee. No wonder I didn't see any video of him saying anything. He didn't. Republicans on the panel, led by the chairman, Senator Rand Paul of Kentucky, say that he is ineligible for Fifth Amendment protection. The reason, they say, is that President Joseph R. Biden Jr., remember that guy, granted him an unconditional pardon for public service actions during a period that includes the pandemic. So Paul's theory there is you can't refuse to testify because there's no jeopardy that comes from testifying, so you should go ahead and do it and rely on the pardon. But they say that out of one side of their mouth. The other side of the mouth, of course, saying, well, we reject the pardon's effect anyway, and we are set to charge you with contempt of Congress and maybe more. We might actually try to make the argument that the pardon itself is invalid anyway, or certainly invalid against future crimes, and we could just define something you did, whether it's contempt of Congress or otherwise, as a future crime and try you for that one. So it's probably wise that you not give them any fodder. I certainly would have advised them to do that. But, of course, if you do advise them to do that, they throw you out of the hearing room. Let's not forget that, Mr. Legalism here, Rand Paul, threw Fauci's legal counsel out of the room. You're not entitled to advice of counsel, and you're not entitled to refuse to offer up statements that could be used to incriminate you. Major parts of the Constitution, Mr. Libertarian threw out of frustration. The potential consequences could be grave for Dr. Fauci. Here are some things to know. I don't know if they're the most important ones, but here are some. Less than forceful way of saying it, but that's fine because I always find it arrogant when they say, here's what you need to know, or here are the most important things. Why did Mr. Biden pardon Dr. Fauci? And the answer is because he knew that they were going to do this, and he wanted to blunt the force of it. But that's the short answer. The long answer is that almost immediately after President Trump was elected to a second term in 2024, Republicans vowed to pursue several prominent figures, among them Dr. Fauci, the government's top infectious disease expert, for his management of the pandemic. On his last day in office, Mr. Biden issued Dr. Fauci and others an unconditional preemptive pardon, it is enclosed in scare quotes here and linked, that protects him from federal prosecution for his actions from 2014 through January 19th, 2025. Of course, Rand Paul will say, we are trying him for an action taken in, was it late July, or did we were already over into August when I think it was probably late July, of 2026, so therefore not covered by the pardon, and of a different sort of, a different kind anyway, civil, presumably, and not criminal, but we don't know. Why did the Senate committee seek his testimony? Well, maybe it will be a criminal one, I guess, so they can actually put him in jail even if only for a fixed term. Okay, why did the Senate committee seek his testimony? There were many pandemic-related issues that senators sought to explore. Fair enough. They accused Dr. Fauci of funding research that led to the creation of the coronavirus. Not fair. And of lying to Congress about it under oath. Also probably not true. Allegations that Dr. Fauci has long denied. They sought to hold him responsible for school lockdowns, masking and vaccine mandates, and other COVID-era restrictions imposed by states, communities, and employers, which, doesn't make any sense, except that they say, well, he advised them to do it. Okay, but then they did it. So arrest them, I guess. But really, don't do that either. Is Dr. Fauci eligible to plead the Fifth? This is the question at the heart of the legal debate. It's not a good one, though. Republican debate, that is. Republican senators on the committee contend that because Dr. Fauci had a presidential pardon, he was already protected. But keep in mind that Republican senators are also at least telling right-wing media outlets that they don't believe that Dr. Fauci had a presidential pardon, that he had an auto pen pardon, and that's not valid, and they really intend to put him in prison by declaring that pardon invalid. But for the sake of argument right now, you should answer the questions, because why shouldn't you? You have a valid pardon. Well, they just told him they were planning on rug pulling that pardon, so what would you do in that situation? Anyway, they go on to say, by refusing to answer their questions, he's effectively violated their subpoena of him. No, they subpoenaed his appearance. If they want to subpoena documents, they can go ahead and do that, I suppose. You don't have any rights under the Fifth Amendment. Oh, isn't that nice? Because you've been pardoned, as you very well know. Senator Josh Hawley, Republican of Missouri, told Dr. Fauci at the hearing. Legal scholars say the issue is not that clear. And by the way, you might ask, if Democrats were to win a majority in either house and hold hearings and bring January 6th defendants and convicts forward and demand answers, and they would take the fifth, and you would say, but you've got a pardon from President Trump, and it wouldn't change their minds about what to do, because they also probably had been advised, your pardon is only good for activities connected to January 6th, even though some of you have gotten away with other crimes since then by creating some sort of linkage to January 6th, and I suppose you could try to do it here too, but in all likelihood, you wouldn't answer these questions either. Jonathan Turley, legal scholars say the issue is not all that clear, and despite the fact that they've introduced this by saying legal scholars are discussing the issue, the next quote is from Jonathan Turley. Now, he considers himself a legal scholar, but Armando says no. I just said, hey, legal scholars are talking about this. In fact, Jonathan Turley has it going on in mind, and Armando immediately hit the brakes on the car, turned around, and started getting ready to call the show. Jonathan Turley, constitutional law person at George Washington University Law School, said that the impact of pardons on a witness's ability to invoke the Fifth was murky, noting that there is little case law on the issue. And that's usually the case because people say, oh, that person's pardoned. It's a waste of our time to pursue him. And if we pursue him, he'll plead the Fifth, and nobody wants to be the one going on record saying, you have no rights under the Bill of Rights. But Josh Hawley didn't mind doing it. Okay, let's see. Turley noted that there were also claims that Dr. Fauci's opening statement could be construed as waiving his Fifth Amendment privilege, negating the cloak of immunity granted by the pardon himself. I'm not certain how he thinks that works. He said something, therefore he now has to say everything. Well, I think the right is actually for you to limit what you say at your discretion. Other scholars maintain that Dr. Fauci's invocation of the Fifth was proper because he was legally vulnerable. His pardon period ended roughly 18 months before the Senate hearing, from which fresh contemporaneous charges could have emerged. Mr. Paul had said for years that Dr. Fauci belongs in prison. So, you know you're facing a hostile audience. You got to be careful. Pleading the Fifth Amendment is an acceptable strategy, quote, given the pretext of the investigation, which is that they are looking for a way to put him in jail, and given the president's own track record of vindictive prosecution, said Kimberly Wheely, I'm going to guess this is the pronunciation of W-E-H-L-E, a professor at the University of Baltimore School of Law who's an expert on the pardon power. In his opening statement to the committee, Dr. Fauci essentially said he believed that the purpose of the hearing was to capture evidence against the pre-selected defendant. If the committee wanted frank testimony and a full exploration of unresolved pandemic questions, senators could have afforded him limited or full immunity covering the testimony. A number of law experts said that's certainly true. Not doing so debunks their claims that he's completely protected by a presidential pardon, says Representative Jamie Raskin, Democrat of Maryland, who is a constitutional law professor himself. It's only because they imagine that he still can be prosecuted that they wouldn't offer him immunity. That's a good point. Are there other actions covered by the Fifth Amendment but not the pardon? Yes, the presidential pardon applies only to federal prosecutions, not those brought by states, unless, of course, you can convince the party in control, even if it's the other party of that state, to do your bidding for you, like Jared Polis in Colorado. The presidential pardon only applies to federal prosecutions. The Fifth Amendment applies, though, to both. Shortly after Dr. Fauci refused to testify last week, officials in Alabama, Louisiana, Florida, and Florida vowed to commence state investigations against him. So it's a pretty solid belief if you were to say, no, I really feel like they're looking to put me in legal jeopardy here. I'll be taking the Fifth Amendment. Thanks very much. I would say, yeah, that sounds about right. What happens next? If the committee votes that Dr. Fauci should be held in contempt, and they did, and now the headline said so, and they didn't revise this, the case would go to the full Senate for a vote. There we go. Or possibly be directly referred to federal prosecutors. Right. Okay, that's a possibility. They could say, well, we haven't voted to hold him in contempt of Congress. We're asking you to prosecute him for contempt of Congress. And just do so on the say-so of the committee. I guess you could do that. I don't know whether I don't know whether the DOJ takes any greater notice of a vote of the full Senate or not. Certainly not in this administration. They won't care either way. If someone asks them to prosecute Fauci, they'll just be only too glad to do it. But ordinarily, and you take it to the floor and say, does the full Senate agree? Are we speaking here as a chamber or just as some committee? All right. They, in turn, the DOJ, I guess, would probably convene a grand jury and seek an indictment. That's a little dicey for them in the D.C. area. If they succeeded, just take it to Texas, right? Sure, give it a shot. If they succeeded, Dr. Fauci would be charged with the misdemeanor of criminal contempt. All right, there's our answer, for which a conviction could result in fines and a prison sentence of up to a year. A federal district court judge in the District of Columbia would decide whether the case should go forward, a ruling likely to address whether Dr. Fauci was entitled to plead the Fifth. Many scholars predict the case will end there, if not sooner. Professor Turley, who maintains that the impact of Dr. Fauci's actions and many entries in his diary raised questions about his thinking that should have resulted in a robust hearing, believes that courts are more likely to side with Dr. Fauci's right to invoke the Fifth. Yes. But he said having the right to do something does not make it the right thing to do. But, thanks a lot, law professor. You need to tell us about the rights rather than you could take it to the philosophy department if you want. Professor Wheely also thinks Dr. Fauci will prevail, in part because the Fifth Amendment was intended to shield witnesses against overbearing government prosecution. Yes. If a court did say that Dr. Fauci could not claim the Fifth, like if they brought the case somehow in Matthew Kaczmarek's court or something, she said the precedent would be truly upending, and that'll stop him. That would say you take the Fifth at your own risk of going to jail, she said, and that turns the Fifth Amendment upside down, right? Okay. That's probably true. But I could see this Supreme Court saying, yeah, but you'll go to jail for less time. If we're asking you questions that could send you to jail for 20 years and you refuse to answer them and instead get sent to jail for 1 year, that's a pretty clear benefit, right? Sure. I'm sure that's exactly what the founders had in mind when it came to the Bill of Rights. Well, we can always punish you with an overbearing government prosecution, but we just can't punish you for as long as we'd like to. And isn't that what we wanted to guarantee in the way of freedom in this country? Sure. Of course not. It's much closer, of course, to, as they said, standing it on its head. All right. There's an awful lot of other things to get to, and I got to jump around to try to find which ones I think need the most attention. There was definitely something that yes. There we go. That I wanted to share with you yesterday, and I didn't get a chance to, and Scott sent it to me, and now there's more information and more stories that can be linked together. What he had sent me was something I had seen, making the rounds on social media, and I didn't intend to, necessarily spend time on it, but now that I see that there's a corroborating story, linkable story, I'll go back to it. And what he sent me was from futurism.com, and I think we've been there before. So yeah, basically, I guess Scott is reading Futurism and Jalopnik and a few other things and finding some really good tidbits. I appreciate these contributions, and I like that it comes from a different source, too. I constantly upbraiding myself, at least mentally, for pulling everything from the same sources all the time, and especially when it's in the New York Times. So Futurism is an unlikely source for this, but here it is. It appears, as they put it in their headline, that the U.S. military, this is going to spill the beans all in one in the headline, so it's a good headline. It appears that the U.S. military accidentally killed everybody on board a civilian medevac flight in New Mexico. There you go. We're just going to pour our hearts out right here in the headline. When those lights go out, man, you're in big trouble. What happened here? Joe Wilkins, again for Futurism. This, though, happened in the past, so it's a little odd. Has it this way. When the Federal Aviation Administration shut down air traffic to El Paso Airport earlier this year, nobody could have guessed that an experimental high-energy laser weapon was the cause. But actually, I believe we did hear that news on the show. After the fact, of course. After days of chaos and speculation, it was revealed that Customs and Border Patrol officials had fired off a laser volley from a U.S. Army base adjacent to the El Paso airport. And already you're in trouble. You got the wrong guys in control of the wrong weapons. And guess what? It leads to bad outcomes. Though the trigger-happy Border Patrol grunts evidently thought they were firing at drug-smuggling drones, their real target turned out to be a kid's party balloon. We have a real problem with balloons in this country. Regardless, it was later reported that the cutting-edge weapon was taken for a test drive a week before FAA and Pentagon officials had a chance to discuss how to safely implement the laser device, making it a small miracle that nobody in the air was killed. And we're constantly shooting at balloons and or telling people that UFO are balloons. That and Balloon Boy all come to mind in this story. Not every use of an experimental aerospace weapon goes off without a hitch, however. New bombshell reporting from Wired, could have gone there, reveals an incident in which the testing of an experimental GPS jammer resulted in a medical plane crashing into the side of a mountain. That is bad. All planes crashing into the side of the mountain are bad. Medevac, just that much worse, considering what it is they're doing in the air in the first place. The horrifying incident happened in May, and we're only finding out now, when a small twin-engine medevac aircraft carrying 2 pilots and 2 medical workers departed from Roswell, New Mexico, and that's always trouble, involving aliens and balloons, heading west for the small mountain village of Ruidoso. The crew became a victim of a giant pop-up ad that blocked the whole article all at once. All right. That's really you that became the victim of that. The crew, though, became the victim of an electronic warfare exercise being conducted at the nearby White Sands missile range, a test which rendered their navigational system inoperable due to a combination of low visibility and an air traffic control that was stretched far beyond capacity. And I think we have Secretary of Transportation who might be answerable for that, and who also has a connected story in the wings. Anyway, due to a combination of all these problems, at least 3 other planes reported navigation disruptions due to the GPS jamming, because it'll do that if it works. The pilots failed to register a mountainous formation between their plane and the landing strip. That's, failed to register a mountainous formation. Very mountainous. It's also a mountain. It's not just mountainous. It actually is a mountain. And there it was. As airline pilot and aviation crash analyst Juan Brown told Wired, the visual effect of that approach would have been stupefying. When those lights go out, man, you are in big trouble, Brown explained. I'm still not clear on what that means, but certainly when the lights go out, no one likes it. Unfortunately, the disoriented crew ran straight into the side of a mountain they likely never saw, resulting in the loss of every life on board. It's the first known instance where military GPS jamming played a role in downing a civilian plane in U.S. airspace. We're not supposed to be doing that. Reported incidents of GPS jamming within the continental U.S. have skyrocketed in recent years. According to the Aircraft Owners and Pilots Association, the number of GPS interference events went from 4 in 2020 to 50 in 2024 and 40 across 2025. So actually a little decline there, but still more than 4. After the initial publication of this piece, a spokesperson for the U.S. Army provided a statement in response. The Army is aware of the release of the NTSB's preliminary report into the crash of a civilian medical evacuation flight on May 14th in the vicinity of Ruidoso, New Mexico. It read, as the incident remains under investigation, we cannot comment at this time. So not much help. But though the crew involved in the New Mexico crash was warned that GPS interference may be present, okay, that's at least something, there evidently weren't enough safeguards or air traffic control personnel in place to prevent a tragedy. So that is bad news. It's something worth looking into and something worth questioning the transportation department about. There's other news on this front. And I had planned to, eventually discuss this thing, but I guess the news I'll bring you on the other side of the break, and let's see if you can guess what it is before then, will highlight the issue of the otherwise vacant office, I guess, of the Department of Transportation. Getting to that in 2 minutes. Hi, it's me, David. I mostly do the commercials around here, too. Have you ever thought you'd like to do a show like this one, but a lot shorter? Maybe without necessarily waking up early each day, or even, let's say, working at it each day? Well, now you can, sort of, and by now, I mean pretty much any time you want, because what I'm talking about is you recording a news story, sharing an essay, or otherwise contributing your thoughts on these crazy times with the rest of us, and with any digital recording device. Make the show your own, as I like to say. Send me a digital file of your recording, a link to any source material, and a note about how you'd like to be identified on the air at KagroX, that's KAGROX, at gmail.com, and I'll take it from there. Don't worry about those ums and ahs either. I sure don't, but I'll even do my best to edit your submission down into a nice-sounding dispatch from the field. So come on, everybody, make the show your own. Help me prove once and for all that I'm not just imagining this audience. Right, welcome back. Okay, and welcome back to another fight with the mute button. And, okay, we're back, and I can tell you the connected story, the thing that brought back to mind the fact that I had that story about the medevac flight waiting in the wings. And where have I put it? Ah, yes, here. New York Times report from yesterday, an alert I got on my phone, which, was a mixed reception when I opened it up. Helicopter carrying Trump flew near passenger jet in Washington airspace. I believe, though, the alert was that military helicopter carrying Trump in danger of midair collision. I think they put a finer point on it. They weren't that close together, but I guess in air traffic control and aerospace terms, I mean, things are moving at significant pace. So when you're a mile apart, that sounds like it's not very close, I guess, to those of us walking on the ground. But to those of us flying through the air, that's too close for comfort. And when you're talking about the helicopter, a military helicopter carrying Trump, that'd be Marine One. And guess what? It's in some ways a problem of his own making, and wouldn't that be something if that were the way he went out? Here's the story. Marine One, the helicopter that ferries the president, came within less than a mile of an Envoy Air flight on Tuesday. I don't think I'm familiar with Envoy Air, raising new concerns about air traffic control in the congested area. But you know what? It's interesting because what it's really raising here are old concerns about air traffic control in the congested area. Particularly, as it happens, the close proximity of military helicopters and civilian airliners. And I think you know exactly what we're talking about here. It is, of course, recounted in the article. Kate Kelly wrote it for the Times. A military helicopter carrying President Trump came less than a mile from a passenger jet above Washington on Tuesday after garbled communications with Ronald Reagan National Airport's tower delayed air traffic controllers from clearing nearby air traffic, according to two people familiar with the federal officials' initial assessment. One, garbled communication. They call it Ronald Reagan National Airport, and it's National Airport. I know. Anyway, but yes, garbled communications, by the way, that should lead to, all right, nobody move. We got to figure out what the garbled communications are here. If you're already scheduled to fly into this thing and you're in an airplane that's sort of moving linear fashion, you get priority. Helicopter that can stop, hover, whatever, not even supposed to be here, you wait. But can you make Marine One wait? Apparently not. The incident occurred shortly after 2:30 p.m. as Mr. Trump was flying to Joint Base Andrews from the White House on the initial leg of a planned trip to Los Angeles. Before taking off, the crew of Marine One, the call sign of the helicopter that carries the president, made 3 attempts to warn controllers in the National Airport tower that they were 3 minutes away from taking off, according to audio recordings posted on ATC, air traffic control, I guess, ATC.com. The communications appeared not to have been heard by the controller, and the helicopter advanced. Now, when you're watching the movies, of course, you wait for your Roger, over and out kind of signal back, an acknowledgement from the tower. Well, we tried 3 times. It's their fault for not hearing us. Maybe it is, but maybe you should be sure of what's going on before you fly into the flight path of National Airport. I don't know. I'm not sure whether that's, I'd be interested to see what the reviews, if any, have to say about the way the pilots handled this thing. The communications appear not to have been heard by the controller, and the helicopter advanced. That put it in the flight path of an Envoy Air passenger jet. A haunting situation after a tragic collision between a military helicopter, which this was, and a passenger jet, which this also was, in the Washington airspace last year. I believe you will recall that one, but if you don't, it's linked here, and they go to their previous coverage. But yes, everyone probably does remember the crash between a Army Black Hawk helicopter and what flight was this? I don't know if they identify the carrier or not, but you remember that it was carrying 64 people aboard from Wichita, Kansas. American Airlines Flight 5342. Perhaps it registered with you because it was carrying a lot of competitive, like Olympic caliber ice skaters back from some competition, and along with their families. It impacted the upcoming Olympic events. It was outrageous, the whole thing, and everybody was like, where's the, what's going on? Why are we stretching our air traffic controllers so thin? How is this not being avoided? And there were just like Trump Transportation Department disasters and near disasters at that point nearly every day. Well, we're back in that territory. At their closest proximity, Marine One came within 0.8 miles of lateral distance and 700 feet of vertical distance from the passenger jet, according to the two people with knowledge of the Federal Aviation Administration's preliminary findings. A loss of safe separation, the distance between two aircraft that's needed to reduce the likelihood of collision, is defined by the FAA in a case like this as breaching either 1.5 miles in lateral distance or 500 feet in vertical distance. But the parameters can vary depending on the airspace and the types of aircraft. I imagine that a helicopter throws a wrench in the works a little bit. It's considering that it can, ascend and descend without making lateral motion. So, it complicates things. Kush Desai, the White House spokesperson, said in a statement that Marine One flights are piloted by the finest aviators in the world, and that's probably even true. And the White House maintains the utmost confidence in them. Okay. Doesn't help us. Are they great communicators? I guess is the next question. Although the president was at no point in harm's way, wink, during yesterday's momentary loss of separation, The White House continues to work with the relevant military, FAA, and other security personnel to ensure the president's continued safety, Mr. Desai said. No mention there of Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy, though. I mean, he's supposed to be implicated in the FAA part, but, they don't blame their own for this. Since July, Mr. Trump has been flying in and out of the Ellipse, a public park south of the White House. Why? Because the area on the White House South Lawn, from which Marine One typically operates, has been closed for the construction of a new helipad. Now, that might, if that was the information all by itself, you might say, well, they got to have a new helipad because they land helicopters there all the time. Well, they've actually been landing helicopters there the whole time without helipads, but Trump wants a helipad for a couple reasons. One, it gets to decorate it, and that seems cool to him. And two, he's a doddering old fool and probably in danger of falling down on the uneven surface of the White House South Lawn grass and would rather walk on pavement, which is probably also part of the reason that he tore up the Rose Garden and paved that. Anyway, it should probably also be pointed out, since from our discussion of it where the helipad is, the answer to that, if you've missed all these shows, is they happen to have built it, not coincidentally, but they happen to have built it exactly where that UFC cage was built for the big fight thing, which, by the way, I also happen to have seen in the news again recently that apparently the producers of the event over the TKO Productions, people who own the UFC thing, apparently lost some $30 million on staging the event, but they're pretty sure they're going to make it all back somehow with, I don't know, I guess you can give them a no-bid contract for missiles or something. Do they make missiles? No, that doesn't matter, though. They'll find somebody who will, and they'll subcontract the whole thing. Anyway, so they killed all the grass on the South Lawn building that thing anyway, so one way of covering that up is to move immediately to the construction of a helipad there, so no one will see the destroyed lawn in between the two events. Anyway, there you go. We might as well throw that one in there. So when we say the area, he's been flying in and out of the Ellipse since because the area where they usually land has got the helipad under construction. He's actually been flying in and out of the Ellipse since they decided to build the UFC fight cage where he normally lands the helicopter. So, that's probably worth noting. So we'll do it for them. That change, moving to the Ellipse, has upended the routine in airspace that was already one of the country's most complex, requiring a constant and elaborate dance among military aircraft, civilian helicopters, and passenger jets for 3 major airports. The third, by the way, I guess they're talking about, the 2 in the Virginia, D.C. area, National and Dulles, and I guess the third would be the Baltimore airports, I suppose. All right. I guess if they're 3 major airports, I guess unless they're talking about Joint Base Andrews as being, it's not really an airport though, so they must be talking about Baltimore. Cassandra Nolan, a spokeswoman for the FAA, said in a statement that based on our preliminary safety review, there had been a momentary loss of separation. She added that the president was, quote, never in danger, but that a review continues. A spokesperson for the Marine Corps, Captain Jacob M. Sugg, called the flight routine. He did not respond to more detailed questions about the incident. The incident was reported earlier by the Wall Street Journal. Okay, that's one of the few publications that I guess the New York Times is willing to credit for having the story earlier than them. The airspace around National Airport has been a source of safety concerns ever since an Army Black Hawk helicopter crashed into an American Airlines passenger flight on July 29, 2025, killing all 67 people aboard both aircraft. Yeah, that is a concern, isn't it? A report by the National Transportation Safety Board, the independent government agency that investigated the accident, found that degraded radio reception, garbled communications, you might say, deprived the Black Hawk crew of critical information about the aircraft with which it ultimately collided. The board also found that the controller handling those flights was overtaxed by working 2 jobs at a busy time. Sean Duffy, please answer. Since then, the FAA has taken some steps to improve air safety above Washington, including by modifying and closing helicopter routes. But not this one. Many other safety measures, though, recommended by the NTSB have yet to be adopted. On Tuesday, the radio reception problems were evident even before Marine One took off from the ellipse for the trip to Andrews. Tower, just want to make sure you copy Marine One 3 minutes to lift, a crew member in the helicopter radioed around 2:31 p.m., according to audio recorded on ATC.com. He received no response as the controllers in the tower instructed other pilots. Tower, do you copy? I mean, they're doing the right thing so far. The Marine One crew member asked, repeating the 3-minute warning. A male controller indicated in a muffled reply that the, quote, last calling was, quote, broken and, quote, unreadable. Marine One repeated its notification a third time. The pilots took off. At about 2:34, the helicopter radioed the tower again. National Tower, Marine One, proceeding as briefed. The controller sounded surprised. Marine One, you said your proceeding is briefed? Marine One confirmed that it was. Marine One, Tower, replied the controller. He offered an altitude reading. Then he seemed to acknowledge the lack of a 3-minute warning, adding, okay, no 3 minutes. Roger, proceed as briefed. Less than a minute later, the controller offered the presidential helicopter a warning. Marine One, you got traffic rotating off runway 1, said the controller, referring to National Airport's main runway for takeoffs and landings. The flight operated by Envoy Air, a subsidiary of American Airlines, that's the answer, had just taken off from National Airport on its way to Pensacola, Florida. It was evidently nearby. Marine One replied, visual traffic, likely an indication that it saw the other aircraft. That's good. According to a local helicopter pilot who requested anonymity because he's not authorized to speak publicly. Okay. A short while later, the helicopter crew announced momentary delay. The controller said Roger, then confirmed the helicopter could proceed. So, nobody loses control of the whole situation all at once, but it is interesting. 3 minutes till we lift off. Tower, 3 minutes till we lift off. Did you hear my last transmission? Hello, control tower. Oh, yeah. Well, hi. This is tower. We can't understand you. We can't make out what you last said. Well, we're proceeding. You're proceeding. Oh, well, guess what? You're not supposed to. You should give us your 3-minute warning. And if we don't hear you, you try again. And if we don't hear you, you try again. And if we still don't hear you, you don't go. I mean, but these are the finest pilots in the world, so they may have said, plus we're in a helicopter. If we take off and we see airplanes flying around, we'll move out of the way or go up or go down. Well, the Black Hawk could have done that too, I guess. But, it's not all that easy. And it's unwise. And maybe the president getting to Andrews a few minutes late. It's not like he's going to miss his flight from out of Andrews, right? They're holding that until he gets there. If he arrives 2 minutes later to Los Angeles, isn't that worth waiting? I don't know. Anyway, I think all parties concerned probably have some review to do. And you might want to ask Sean Duffy. He's, by the way, the Secretary of Transportation. I don't know if you're aware of that. What he's doing at all, ever, like in any way, shape, or form. Because, come on, it's disaster after disaster over there. When are you going to pay some attention to what's going on? But you may also remember during the summer or the spring and early summer, when we were on our big road trip across the country, we found the news along the way that Sean Duffy was also taking a giant road trip across America, not quite in the same fashion that we were doing. He had millions of dollars worth of sponsors to do it. That's problematic on one level because, of course, these are, of course, interested parties who have business before the Department of Transportation, but are offering up millions of dollars to Duffy to do what? To leave work and not show up and drive all across the country for reasons. In addition to which, I drove across the country for fun too. Of course, I actually continued to work. I assume Sean Duffy did some work along the way, but I never had I never had any sponsors to do it, and B, I didn't think that, I didn't justify it by saying, well, either that I'm making a reality show out of it, although I guess in a way the radio show became the reality show, but I don't know. I guess I also never thought that it was of national importance that I take this trip necessarily. I just thought, it was fun and interesting. But Sean Duffy has convinced himself that his trip across the country would inspire millions of Americans to think of doing the same, and that they should do it because something America 250. Anyway, the point is they were going to produce this reality show in which hilarity ensues when Secretary of Transportation and his wife take 9 kids, I think, with them on a road trip across America because patriotism. So fine, that's dumb, but they did it. And they had millions of dollars from interested parties to do it, and that's an issue all by itself. And also, when are you going to work? Because there are planes and helicopters colliding and nearly colliding all the time, and now one of them is the president's, and maybe you should, report to work once in a while. But at the very least, you should be able to say, all right, well, I'm back at work, but you can see how hard I was working. Look at my fantastic reality show that I produced. I don't think that's going to excuse the absence, but you might offer it up. But guess what? I think there might not be any reality show, which then calls the whole, sponsorship thing into question. It was always questionable right from the beginning, but, it should never have happened. But apparently it did. Now sponsors might ask what happened to all of that money. And, of course, if you're looking to explain how millions of dollars can disappear all of a sudden, 9 kids will help you answer that question, I think. But, I think you could have probably taken care of the 9 kids for a lot less. What am I talking about? It's over at the Bulwark, where Will Sommer has written this piece called What the Hell Happened to Sean Duffy's Road Trip TV Show? That is interesting. That's a good question. And I think, though, this one they decided is going to be behind one of their paywalls. And I have to make sure I have access to the whole thing here. And I have to click some buttons to be sure that it's going to work. But I can at least give you the rundown of where it begins. And I'm not certain that we're going to be able to get through the whole thing. But I think they ask the right questions. At least, let me see if I can have some assurance that I'll be able to read this whole. I don't think we do. We don't. And they want you to subscribe, as most places do, to their publication, and I'm just not doing it. Maybe Greg does. He's a frequent Bulwark reader. We'll see. Anyway, the good question, what happened to Sean Duffy's road trip TV show? Here's what I can tell you. 3 months after it was announced, the Secretary of Transportation's summer show, funded by companies he regulates, hasn't aired a single episode. And I mean, we got a 4th season of Ted Lasso before we ended up getting the much anticipated new Sean Duffy reality TV show. And has he done anything other than being in reality TV? A little bit. It gets a little bit of elected office, a little bit of appointive office. But I guess it must just be addictive being a reality TV star. If you're the kind of person who's willing to, be on camera with private portions of your life all the time, I guess, you just trade it for the money and you just can never stop. Secretary of Transportation Sean Duffy and his family promised back in May to help. They were only doing this to help American families, as you know. We got millions of dollars. We were paid millions of dollars to take a trip across America with our kids. But we did that to help other people. That's nice. But you were supposed to be serving as Secretary of Transportation at the time, and airplanes and helicopters kept crashing. Anyway, he's going to help American families bond during vacation season. The plan? The Great American Road Trip, a new online television show starring, the Duffys, Sean, his wife Rachel Campos Duffy, and their 9 children. Which I'm sure every single one of them was thrilled about this. And by the way, like an online television show, like what's the delay in airing it? We're waiting for, time? No. Put it online already. You could do it if you shot the thing, put it on YouTube right away. People do it the next day, the same day. The idea, though, of their show was that the Duffys would drive around together with cameras documenting their every wholesome conversation in the car and then following them around on their sightseeing escapades. I always wondered about how you do that. Now, what car fits you family, 9 kids, and a camera crew. I'm curious what they were driving. They were driving a school bus around the country, apparently. These trips for the family of 11 didn't come cheaply and were seemingly funded to the tune of millions of dollars in donations from corporations Duffy regulates. Still, there was theoretically a noble goal involved. There really wasn't. Campos Duffy, who is a Fox News host and, like her husband, a former reality TV star, said that the show would be an antidote to Americans' typical lives in what she bafflingly called a Pornhub world. So the two alternatives there, Pornhub and watching the Duffys drive around the country. And because you haven't been able to watch the Duffys drive around the country, I guess that answers the question about how you've been spending your time. Why they condemned America to a Pornhub world for 3 months, I have no idea. But I don't know. Probably America is actually thanking them for that. Describing the show on Fox News, of course, and in a promotional conversation in the Oval Office with President Trump, Duffy said their motto is to love America is to see America. That's nice. Usually to see America is to love America, but this was to love America is to see America. Maybe so, and Will gets points for this one. But you know what part of America nobody has seen? Duffy's show. That's true. This Saturday marks 3 months since, and it was last Saturday now, since the Duffy's Fox News appearance. Summer is more than half over. The celebrations around the 4th of July that Duffy's show was supposed to promote, the project was supposedly aligned, and that's in scare quotes, aligned with Trump's sketchy Freedom 250. That explains why nothing got done. They're well in the past. Many American school students will go back to school this week. Is that right? Where? I don't know. But anyway, yes, the Great American Road Trip, which Duffy promised would premiere in June, has not released a single episode. That's a pretty significant failure for a show the Department of Transportation once described as a, quote, key initiative. True. What happened to the Great American Road Trip? Why have the Duffys failed to help a single American family grow closer or disconnect from the Pornhub world, you might ask? Well, perhaps the public's appetite for accompanying Duffy, something. That's actually the end of the article that's available to you. You can get it by signing up for a free trial to the Bulwark, but then you'll never get rid of them, I'm sure. I am a little bit curious about what the rest of the article has to say, but the important part was to share the news that hey, that dumb a-hole hasn't produced a goddamn thing for anybody, even though he said he was only taking those millions of dollars to help America she said, help America have an alternative to Pornhub. Too bad, everybody. Hope you're enjoying the Pornhub, at least. Those guys get their videos up a lot faster, I must say. And no double entendre intended there. Okay, let's see. Other things that I need to bring you up to date on. There are many here. And in a few minutes, I'll be back to regretting which ones I didn't tell you about. But because there was only a few minutes available to do so, I wanted to bring you this piece just to update you on. A couple of days ago, I reported to you that the House had approved a continuing resolution to, they just blurted out, keep the government open and avoid a government shutdown. We're still we're just under 90 days from the next government shutdown, which would align with, the end of the fiscal year. It's a little bit unusual that they are spending July and now into August working on a CR when they're really not at that point where they need to panic yet. That doesn't come until the end of September. Anyway, the Senate has also done its own work on it, and apparently the Senate has finalized its funding patch, as Politico calls it in the headline, that would block Trump's grant overhaul. Language is included in their CR to delay the president's move to put political appointees in charge of grant approval. That also a major news story, which I think we mentioned in passing on the day the story broke, but that really is where we need to go, and maybe we'll spend some time on it in Friday. In which the administration is admitting openly in court submissions that they've kind of already been doing this, that they have been very actively disapproving of research grant funding in so-called blue states, and, of course, also redirecting federal disaster aid away from blue states and to red states. When red states have a disaster, they get help. When blue states have a disaster, they do not. And, of course, every accusation being a confession with Republicans. You may recall that it was an obsession among Republicans in the MAGA set that they were accusing Joe Biden of withholding aid to North Carolina in the wake of, and I've forgotten the name already, of the major hurricane disaster that struck the western portion of the state, and everyone was running around outraged at Joe Biden's supposed weaponization and politicization of disaster relief funds, which actually wasn't true and wasn't happening. Meanwhile, of course, they are openly doing so and admitting to it in the Trump administration because the president has discretion. You see, one thing, of course, Trump could never previously have been accused of having discretion, per se. But anyway, yes, everything that they accused Democrats of in the 2024 election, it turns out that they had planned and eventually does become a confession in the second Trump administration. But yeah, all right, the Senate has done their work on this thing. The Senate Appropriators released a text last Sunday, I guess, of a stopgap funding bill. Everyone wants to stop the gaps. To avert a shutdown come October 1st and punt broader government funding negotiations until after the midterms. And apparently some bipartisan agreement on this, but it includes a restriction, an alleged restriction on the ability of the president to direct withholding of research grants on a political basis and to put political appointees in charge at the various grant-making institutions and agencies that who would then be granted the discretion to simply decide that an area was too blue to benefit from federal research grant support. Okay, well, they've put it in writing. We'll see whether this president or anybody in the Republican administration feels that they are bound by that writing, which, of course, hasn't yet passed either house.
From networksradio.com, you have been listening to Kagro in the Morning with David Waldman.
All right, Justice Putnam does the job of picking up another top story from today's headlines that I haven't gotten to. Trump is trying to avoid turning over 2 years of every scrap of financial and tax data held by his 400 companies to justify what he now admits is a phony $10 billion damages claim against the BBC. Stay tuned for that and more. We'll be back tomorrow.